You are listening to the Lawyer Life Podcast, episode number 53. Am I getting in my own way? Confirmation bias and self-sabotage. We often think of self-sabotage as some kind of big dramatic thing, like we quit a job out of nowhere without having anything lined up, or we blow up a relationship, or we ghost an opportunity. But usually our own self-sabotage is a lot sneakier than that. Welcome to the Lawyer Life Podcast. I am your host, Autumn Noble, the founder of the Lawyer Life Collective, life and career coaching for attorneys. As a practicing attorney and a coach, my practice and career have led me all over the map, from big firms to small firms, going in-house, teaching in law schools, and eventually founding my own firm and creating my own successful side gig. Now I teach all of my clients how to do the same thing. If you want to learn how to build your practice and your client base, establish some independence, find more time, get more done, or generally find more happiness and balance in your life or career, you are in the right spot. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lawyer Life Podcast. This week, we are continuing our theme of the month where we are unpacking self-sabotage and confirmation bias. In this one, we are looking at listener questions related to these particular issues. This is an especially juicy question because these are two of the sneakiest mind traps that I've seen lawyers engage in when they're trying to create success. In order to create the careers that we actually want, we need to be able to understand our own self-sabotage patterns and how to recognize confirmation bias that's really getting in the way of making decisions that benefit us in the long run. This week, we had a listener write in and ask, how do I know when I'm making a smart, informed decision versus when I'm just sabotaging myself or letting fear run the show? Oof. Really good question. If you've ever wondered that, believe me, you are not alone. And today's episode is just for you. So let's get to unpacking this. First, we have to start with a simple understanding of confirmation bias, which we talked about in our prior episodes this month. So if you haven't listened to those, go ahead and skip back and check into those now to give you the foundation of what confirmation bias actually is. In simple terms, confirmation bias is when your brain looks for evidence that supports what you already believe and ignores all of the evidence to the contrary. For example, let's say you believe, I'm not really cut out to be a partner, or I'm not really partner material. Your brain is going to start scanning your day for moments that prove that belief. When someone doesn't reply to your email fast enough, or when you stumbled during a presentation, or you needed help from a colleague, your brain is going to point to all of that and say, look, that is proof that I don't belong and I'm not partner material. That is simply confirmation bias. Because during that exploration, your brain is going to ignore any glowing reviews that you've gotten from clients, any positive feedback that you maybe got from your colleagues, or how that same colleague came back to you later that day and asked you for support and help. Your brain filters out all of that data. Our lawyer brains that are trained to analyze risk, anticipate problems, and double check everything are especially susceptible to confirmation bias. We are essentially professional catastrophizers. So the question then becomes, what belief are you trying to confirm? What catastrophe are you trying to prove true with your own confirmation bias? Now let's add to the mix self-sabotage. We often think of self-sabotage as some kind of big dramatic thing, like we quit a job out of nowhere without having anything lined up, or we blow up a relationship, or we ghost an opportunity. But usually our own self-sabotage is a lot sneakier than that. Self-sabotage may look more like procrastinating on something that really matters to you, never finishing your website update or profile update or updates to your resume and just continually putting it off, saying yes to everything that comes your way and then driving yourself right into burnout, or convincing yourself that you're just not ready every time a new opportunity presents itself. Sometimes what looks like being responsible or playing it safe is really just self-sabotage in a prettier outfit. So how can we tell the difference and make more informed decisions? So we engage a tool that I like to think of as kind of a lawyer litmus test. And this is a series of questions that I walk through with my clients that are struggling to get clear on their decisions. But I'm going to break it down really simply here into three quick questions. First, is this decision driven by values or by fear? So we have to really start challenging ourselves to unpack, why am I making this decision or considering this decision? Or why am I not doing the thing? And that's going to help us start to understand what is really driving it. Is it my values or is it fear? Two, what am I afraid might happen if I'm successful? On the flip side, what am I afraid might happen if I fail? Both of these questions are, again, going to kind of get at the meat of it. Are we being driven by fear or are we being driven by our values? Last, what would I tell my best friend if they were in the exact same situation? This allows us to sort of disconnect from the emotion of it and try and engage that prefrontal cortex and make a more rational decision. The last one is really that gold standard because we're usually kinder and gentler with the people around us and more honest with the people around us than we are with ourselves. And so if we can slip into that third person perspective, it might be easier to look at it and say, yeah, Autumn, like you're being afraid or you're acting out of fear or you're afraid that if it doesn't go well, then all these bad things will happen. I want to share a few examples with you of how I see this coming up in my coaching relationship. So one example relates to a client of mine that was wanting to move to an in-house position from a previously corporate legal practice. This particular client kept telling herself that she just didn't have enough experience. She just wasn't corporate enough. And so she was really convincing herself that there was no need to apply for the position because she didn't have the right skill sets. But when we started to dig into where this idea came from and why she was concluding that she wasn't corporate enough or didn't have the right experience, it all kind of related back to a conversation that she had had with a partner like 5 years ago, where they had said, like, you just don't understand business enough. And she had sort of internalized that and let it form a belief about who she was and what she was capable of. And because of that belief, her confirmation bias just kept ignoring everything in her experience 5 years later that really proved the opposite true. Over time, we were able to get her to believe in her ability and believe in her skill set, and she applied. And big surprise, she's doing really well working in house. Here's another case study, and this one is more about self sabotage. I had a client that kept kind of pushing back a deadline on a passion project. I think she was writing an article for a professional journal that related to her substantive area of law. And she was really excited about it. But for whatever reason, again and again, she just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And she'd give herself these deadlines and then she'd just blow through them and explain that she was just too busy to dedicate time and energy to this passion project. So when we started to explore it, and I asked her that second question, like, what happens if you succeed at this, but what happens if you fail at this? What we realized was that the fear of failure was so strong that it was driving her to avoid it. Her fear was really, if I finish this and it doesn't go well or it flops, what does that mean about me as a lawyer and a specialist in this particular area? And so she just kept it unfinished. And in that scenario, perfectionism was kind of her shield, but also her cage, right? Like she was using that perfectionism to try and protect herself. And in reality, that perfectionism was just keeping her stuck. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. When you're doing something scary, it's easy to explain to ourselves why we don't have time to do it or why we shouldn't do it. And oftentimes underneath that is simply fear of what happens or what will make it mean if it doesn't go well. And those are the critical projects and experiences that can really mold us into stronger, more resilient, and more confident women if we follow through, regardless of how it plays out. So here's a little homework for you, the listeners, this week. If you're curious to see whether or not self-sabotage or confirmation bias are holding you back, pick one belief that you have about yourself and your career. It could be something you're good at, something you're not good at, something that you could achieve or not achieve, and write it down. And then ask yourself, what is the impact this belief is having on my life and my career? Is it helping me or is it holding me back? Next, we're going to force ourselves to explore if we've got confirmation bias blinders on. So I want you to start looking for counter evidence to that belief, intentionally collecting moments and experiences from your life and from your career that disprove that belief. And believe me, this is going to feel a little bit weird at first, but it's so powerful because you really start to see, oh my gosh, I have kind of run down the road with this belief, and there's so much evidence in my life proving that this belief isn't true. And maybe I am capable of that, or maybe I can do that, or maybe I am really good at these things, even though I always say I'm not. Once you've identified that belief and got some sort of aha moments or a little clarity about the belief, I want you to share it with someone in your life. And it may just be speaking about what you've discovered and saying simply, I think I've been self-sabotaging myself, or I just realized that I've been proving an old story true that I no longer want to believe. It's really kind of wild how much clarity can come just from naming it and calling it out and letting the people in your life know that you're no longer going to subscribe to that limiting belief about yourself. All right, my friends, that is it for today's Q&A episode. If this hits home for you, share it with a friend or take a moment to leave a review. It helps more lawyers find the show and get the support that they need. If you have any questions or want to get support with your own self-sabotage or confirmation bias, reach out to me. Send an email to autumn@thelawyerlifecollective.com. And if you've got a question that you want answered from me on one of our next podcast episodes, send me an email to my email address or leave me a note on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you and get your questions answered next time around. Until next time, my friends, in the interim, be sure to take care of yourself. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, thanks for sharing with your friends. Hey, my friends, this is a gentle reminder that if we haven't met yet, be sure to reach out and schedule a virtual coffee. I love meeting my network. I want to hear about what's working for you, what's not working for you. It helps me keep a pulse on the segments of the legal industry that I'm not working with directly. Furthermore, if you work at a firm that could use a little bit more support and education, I am still scheduling some upcoming speaking engagements for firms this fall. So if you have an interest or you have the ear of someone at your firm and you want to schedule a session with me, teaching your fellow attorneys about how to have difficult conversations, how to achieve any goal, how to find your own clients, how to sell yourself, or anything along those lines, I would love to chat with you and see if we can come up with some powerful content and training for your team. If that sounds good to you, reach out to me, autumn@thelawyerlifecollective.com. Last, don't forget, the Lawyer Life Collective has a ton of really good, cheap, self-guided resources available to you. If you are not interested in a full-time coaching engagement at this time, I totally get it. I have tons of really great free resources and downloads and self-guided programs available to you at a much more reduced price. It's an easy way to kind of dip your toe in the pond of coaching to get a better understanding of me and what I'm about and my coaching philosophies. Head over to thelawyerlifecollective.com and check out my downloads and freebies page to see if there's something that might resonate with you.